You and Toby both then.
Yeah, no.
Wow.
I'm as orange as Toby Campbell. There we go. We're sorted out.
The audience.
Right. Guys, thank you for joining me. Of course, we're going to talk about European Gears of War once again. San Diego was just the other weekend. We know Frew was there. He's going to tell us all about it, but we've got plenty to discuss on European Gears. Of course, I'm joined by Frew, Toby, and Elliot's on his way back from being on the train. So how much he pitches in, we're not quite sure, but we're going to talk about a few things here. First and foremost, we are actually going to speak about Lucent. Well, formerly Lucent by the sounds of things. Frew, do you want to fill us in?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Lucent had a very good event out at San Diego, so it was a bit of a shock to see that roster dissolve pretty much the moment they set back foot on European soil. We are seeing a new roster kind of form out of that, which I guess we can touch on now. It's going to be the old Spanish Lucent roster with Shadows in there and Cougar. So yeah, going to be an interesting roster to watch. Getting back to the event though, yeah, Lucent they had a good event. I wouldn't say a very good event. I think they could have got further, but from what I saw, they had a fantastic first match against World's Best. That was in pools. They were down one map and then ended up winning the next two maps, both on round 13. So 7-6, 7-6 to kind of reverse World's Best there. Yeah, and then they went through, got slaughtered by Ghost. Not the only team to do so, so no real harm there. But had a strong match in their pools against the open bracket team that came through, Fable, and then did okay in the championship bracket as well. So reasonable event for Lucent.
Yeah, and Toby, I mean, the thing is that we're hearing that they've split up and the frustration now comes out once again at another decent placement, another EU roster that seems to be changing.
Yeah, I'm baffled. 9th to 12th, Lucent got in a North American Pro Circuit event. I have no idea why they have split. Absolutely no clue in the world. If I were them, I would be so happy coming back on the flight home after that event. Of course, Ghost Gaming, you mentioned it, Alex, did extremely well against them and smashed them, for lack of a better word. But they gave amazing games, excluding that one, to everybody they played against, which shows in their placement. It showed in their group position at the end as well of the group stages. And I have no idea why they've split. I'm trying to come up with reasons in my mind right now, and nothing is really popping up. But I think maybe in the future they'll be kicking themselves, and maybe I wouldn't be surprised if they eventually reform in the future when they realize what they had in terms of quality. I know, as you mentioned, Alex, the Spanish players have all got back together. They're kind of like their safe haven, their old school team that they're familiar with, and the players, whether that was the main motivation, the fact that they just wanted to get all back to the same, best friends and ex-teammates, I'm not sure, but I don't know. I have no idea as to that. So yeah, baffled as anybody else.
I'll tell you why, Toby, and I'm going to come in here.
Here he is. Try not to get run over, Earl.
No. Apologies for the viewers and hearing the cars and the madness of the trucks honking their horns, but I like to honk my horn as well, so don't worry about it. Basically, there must have been like a personal reason or personal reasons as to why they split.
The
Obviously,
nationalities, maybe.
Well, I said this. I think we had that that pre-discussion about how they would fare in Liverpool, having a multinational team. But it must have been that. Also, recently the Pro Points have decayed as of yesterday. So, as of the 5th of October, so today. So that could have played a part in the fact that they wanted to switch things up, go back to their Spanish. We know that the Spanish roster before, the reason why they weren't excelling was because of the Pro Point system. So I think that's the reason. I think it must have been a personal affair, the reason why they split. And I think a large part of it was as well the Pro Point decay, the Pro Point system decaying. I think that obviously had a pretty big, was one of the pretty big factors to do with it as well.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, actually. 95% the Pro Points have been decreased. And to be honest, before a few of the previous EGLs, we've been singing the praise of this Spanish Lucent roster, right?
That's true.
We looked at that team going out to NOLA with Shadows on, and we said, God, like, why didn't they stick for another event? Why didn't they stick through Liverpool? And to be honest, most of that reasoning was so they could get a team together, so these players could go to the pro circuit events. With the decay, Elliot's right. Like, this team may actually now have a shot at making that top 3, top 4 spot anyway, and then becoming that top 4 team in the pro point standings as well. Yeah. So yeah, maybe a good move actually. But yeah, it is a shame because Lucent, they had every chance to finish top 8 as well. I mean, late on the Saturday night, the very last game in the venue, it was Elevate against Lucent Esports. It went right to the wire. It went to map 3. It was 5-5, and Elevate just managed to take a couple of rounds where, quite honestly, Lucent could have won as well. Just, a kill either way, and it would have been Lucent through to that top 8 spot, fighting for top 6. So yeah, I'm not sure which team has more potential, but it is a shame to see a lot of hard work go to waste.
Yeah. Go on, Al.
Sorry, no, I was just going to make one last point. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Tunn. I think if we're looking at Lucent just purely on the vent, I feel like Friday, they played extremely well. Like, they got to San Diego, they gathered their thoughts, and they really brought the heat and fire. But Sunday, when I watched them, when I was hearing about their scores on Sunday, it just felt like by Sunday the fire had just completely fizzled out. You know what I mean? They didn't bring the same performance they brought on Friday to Sunday, or to Saturday, sorry.
Yeah.
So that's been an issue with
jet lag.
You look at the old dudes, it's like, well, jet lag. I don't know if it's jet lag. I don't know if it's just the stamina isn't there. They obviously played one of the, sorry.
That's good.
But they played in that first kind of Friday. They played a lot of games that went to like round 13, third map. Obviously, that's going to kind of really take out your stamina for the rest of the event as well. So I just don't know. It doesn't seem to me like that team really were able to kind of withstand the amount of work they needed to put in. You know what I mean?
So you think they might have burnt out, basically? Yeah. Frew, you were going to say something on that?
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on that point. Actually, is that pretty much all of the European teams, including Space Station, that went out there, they did suffer from long games and obviously the time zone difference. Regal on the Saturday, they had to go home and have a nap halfway through their day. Like they were literally falling asleep at the desk while playing. They were that bad, and they just hadn't had enough time to acclimate to the time zone. And I can't remember. I was chatting to someone at the event about this, about if I had the choice, what day would I bring? How much time would I bring these teams out in advance? And I was saying, you need at least a full week, because you need a couple of days to get in the time zone, a couple of days to, practice, scrim, get yourself set, and then go into the event on Friday fresh and ready. And these teams are flying out on Wednesdays, and like, by the time the event hits, there's no wonder that Lucent with all their round 13s and last map games. Regal, the same thing. They had the whole open bracket to play whilst also being, very, very tired. And even Space Station, like, obviously having 3 pool games, as well as, some long series against Reciprocity, for example. Yeah. By the end of it, I think going into their match against Ghost Gaming, they played like six maps on the trot without a break. And they were just being ushered from station to station to play their next opponent. No time to eat. And this was something that Sean, Space Station's owner, was telling me about. He's like, he wanted to go get some food for their players, but they literally had no time to go and eat. Like that's how much they were like forced between these stations. And it's difficult for teams in that situation. You've got no time to prepare for your next game. Like you need like half an hour just to kind of, go over your notes, go over your preparation and make sure your team's on board for the next opponent. And yeah, just to get some substance down you, just to keep you fresh is definitely important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, that's something that a lot of teams suffer from across the board in all esports. In Call of Duty, it happens as well. Teams can burn out, especially when you're playing through that open bracket. Try and get into pools. It just makes things all the more difficult. Let's move on, because I feel like we've talked on Lucid and the other teams quite a lot. Let's speak about Space Station. I think we sort of predict them second, third when we talked before the event. I mean, Elliot, I don't know what your thoughts are on their performance, but a pretty decent effort from the Space Station boys.
Yeah, 100%. There's not, again, a top 3 placement after changing their roster as recently as they did. You know, it's a great achievement. You know, they shouldn't be downhearted. Should take a lot of positives from it. I'm sure Keith, the coach, is going to be bringing up some points when they start scrimming again against the American teams online. They could state, points that they can improve on. Jack's looking like he's fitting in well in that team. But I had to, it's a hard one because they've now got to a point where they can beat the likes of Echo Fox. But Ghost and Optic still, I feel like Ghost is probably more. So obviously we've seen them play more, but obviously Ghost seems to be almost a bogey team for Space Station.
Yeah.
Within that series, they never really looked like winning it. Do you know what I mean? They never really looked like. I mean, they won that first map, fair play.
They had to drag it back, though, right?
Yeah. I mean, to come back from
it was 6-2
down is an amazing achievement. But the other maps, it just looked like after that first map, it just burnt out, and they never really looked like they were contesting Ghosts in those last 2 maps at all ever. And I feel like it's the same when it was in the last event. It was the same thing when I watched Space Station versus Ghost Gaming. It always seemed like they didn't really have an answer for Ghost Gaming, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, while Elliot walks along the M25 through, what do you? I mean, actually, I'll ask you, Toby. You sort of thinking the same? I mean, it could have boiled down to what we were talking about before. They could have potentially burnt out when it got to that point when they played against Ghost Gaming.
Potentially, yes. Going up against Echo Fox is going to be a draining process due to how organized Echo Fox are. You really do have to be playing at peak performance individually and especially as a team, communication-wise, initial strategies, tactical play, everything needs to be firing on all cylinders. And so, maybe they were a little bit drained after playing against Echo Fox, which they did an amazing job of, by the way, in taking down Echo Fox in such style as well. I think the main reasoning behind them being able to take down Echo Fox and not so much Ghost Game and Optic is it comes back to the play styles, right? Echo Fox, they're extremely tactical, fairly new team as well, so perhaps their teamwork isn't at what it could potentially be with their current roster, so maybe a bit of a weakness there that Space Station took advantage of. But, Echo Fox, they're known for their team play and not so much their slaying. And when you have Space Station just flying at you, very Optic Gaming-esque, forcing shotgun battles, forcing initials and reactions from Echo, I think it essentially shut them down. And Space Station really took advantage of that. They got the triple cap rounds when necessary and the dominations, and they did a phenomenal job at really hard countering, if you will, Echo Fox and their general play and approach to the game. The issue that occurred when they went against Ghost Gaming is it was kind of like both teams fighting the exact same way, but Ghost Gaming having the edge a little bit, perhaps maybe with teamwork and chemistry, given that Jack's a little bit newer, or due to the mass amount of practice that Ghost Gaming, that roster has had online, being in North America and whatnot, and their experience at these pro circuit events together. I think Space Station shouldn't, be disheartened by their performance against Ghost Gaming. Of course, it's still a top 3 finish, really cementing themselves now as a top 3 team globally, and not just the best team in Europe. I think going forward, Space Station, they just need to focus on, keeping that slaying power high, keeping to their strengths, but also really polishing up on anything that can really cause an issue against the likes of Ghost Game and Optic.
Yeah, I think the question begs to be asked that, with more time with that roster, how do they do? How would they have done if Marsh is still on that roster? There's a lot of question marks around it. But let's move into other placements. Frew, any other placements that you wanted to point out from the event?
Yeah, I want to talk about the top 3 actually, just quickly.
Okay.
Because we discussed it before the event, and I think pretty much all of us had Optic first. I know I said Space Station second, Echo in that 3rd spot, and I think Toby, you were the other way, like Echo second. I think Ghost surprised a few people on Sunday. To be honest, they had a very up and down event, and I think this was actually the kind of theme of the whole San Diego event in that top 4 is inconsistency. The teams up there, Optic nearly losing their first pool play match. They went to round 13 on their last map against not the 2nd but the 3rd place team in their group. Like this kind of thing is not something you normally see from Optic. Optic also, they lost a map against Optic Mexico. They They lost a map against Space Station. Like, they were losing a lot of maps, and they had a lot of opportunity to not go through that winners bracket as they would have intended to. Luckily, their pedigree got them through, but they were inconsistent, especially throughout the first couple of days. Sunday, obviously, Optic is Optic, and they turned up and they won the event as we pretty much all predicted. But yeah, it wasn't a solid event like we usually see from them. Likewise, Ghost destroy Echo Fox. They made them look like one of the worst open bracket teams there. They demoralized them. They shut them down. Echo Fox had like a few rounds. Like they were pretty pants in that game, and I'm not sure if that was Echo Fox playing badly or Ghost playing amazingly. But then you switch, Ghost play Optic, and Ghost then look like that amateur team. It's such a rock paper scissors of who's on fire and who's not, and we saw it across the whole of the top 4 this event. It's a bit of a weird situation. No one was really consistently fantastic. Rise is probably the perfect example of that, actually. Again, had a fantastic pool play, almost defeating Echo Fox. And then we get to the championship bracket again, and then they just drop and fall. Alex,
I was going to say that, sorry to interrupt your point.
That's all good.
I feel like that should be something that these teams should be working on, because it just feels like you've just said it there, right? That when the pressure's not on, these teams come out and they play amazing. But when the pressure's on, they don't do well. They don't know how. I feel like these teams, going into the next event, which is in February, or Columbus for the invited team, really need to work on how they handle those pressurized situations, because it almost seems like that's what they need to do. They need to, they really need to kind of work on when their backs are against the wall, when they're playing the top teams in the championship bracket or the losers bracket, how they get past that and how they still come out and show the same performance, because obviously that's an issue. Do you know what I
mean? Yeah, definitely. Elliot, are you sticking around, or are you off?
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to go now. I'm going to have to leave. So it's been a long old journey for me. Thank you so much for giving me the time.
You're very welcome.
I love you all. I love you all incredibly. And obviously, I just want to say, as I leave, my signature buy will be this Pro Point Decay system. I think the EU really need to get on this. I feel like we really need to come out and show numbers and start playing, because there's something to play against. There's something to play for against, again, right? So this really should be an opportunity that we can almost start up a new season.
Pretty much is that, right?
Yeah.
Within the season 2. So we really need to come out. We really need to show our guns, start competing again at a high level. So I hope to see it. I hope to see the EU community step up and come out and show.
No, I think we all agree. Balls. Yeah. Tell them, Elliot. But thank you very much for coming on while you were walking along the motorway and on your train. But and we're going to get you set up with a good mic at some point, aren't we?
We will, 100%. I do apologise. So I was going to come home.
One day.
I was kind of coming home from work, so I do apologise for that. No, thank you.
It's okay.
Give me the opportunity anyway.
Okay, mate. I'll catch you later. Thank you.
All right. Catch you in a bit. Bye.
In a bit, Al. Bye.
In a bit, boys. In a bit, bye.
Right, then we'll move on to something else now after we get Al off the phone. But
always something new.
Oh yeah, there's always something with that lad. And 2v2 boxes. Let's talk about that, because we'll talk about the Pro Points thing in a little bit. But the 2v2 boxes event, Frew, you were there to see it. Your thoughts on that and the eventual winners? Obviously, an EU team coming away with that one.
Sure. Yeah, I thought the event was fantastic. Honestly, it was something fresh for Gears. It's something real kind of core to the to the Gears experience, very gritty, very kind of in your face, right? Yeah. And San Diego, they showed up, honestly, almost 100 teams. I think we had 99 teams or something like that in the end. And this is discounting pool play teams, because obviously they were playing, so they couldn't participate.
Yeah.
So yeah, like there was a huge showing of teams. There was more trash talk and more back and forth in the 2v2 tournaments than I think there was on the in the main tournament as well, which was fantastic for a side station. There were some huge games there, and yeah, across across the course of 2 days, obviously, like most of it was played Saturday, and then Sunday we had the semi-finals and finals. Some fantastic close matches, some whitewashes, some upsets, and some long drawn out games. But honestly, as a whole, I think it was fantastic, and I'd love to see something like that done over here as well. I think it'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
Talking about the winners, Europe's finest, the LCQ champs themselves, Ash and Incisive. Obviously, we're supposed to be out there playing for Fable, but got let down by a couple of their members, and well, they entered the 2v2 tournament and came back the winners. So yeah, Europe did win something this event, which is good to see. They ended up in the semi-final. They were against Ribs and Toxicity. I think his name is. It was a pretty close game. It was like 10-8, I think it was, or something like that. It was reasonably close, 10-7. Obviously, Ribs, former pro, so a very good matchup. A lot of kind of high-skilled players in that match. Ash and Incisive went through to the final where they played Infernos. They were a Mexican duo, a Latin American duo, who honestly they battered about Marsh and his teammate for 10 rounds in the other semi-final. That was the other thing we should mention as well, is that on the other side of the bracket, Marsh and his teammate, they managed to get through to top 4 as well. So all of the semi-finalists had a European member in there, or at least one European member, 2 in the other.
Yeah, Toby, I think you wanted to say something about the negativity that surrounded the final, actually.
Yeah. I'm semi-surprised about the reaction, but there was apparently a lot of booing from the crowd and other teams and spectators as to how Ash and Incisive was playing. I watched a little bit of it during the broadcast. Of course, we also had the Pro Sick event going on at the same time, and you can see that Ash and Incisive were playing very passively in a number of rounds, both starting right at the get-go and also mid-round retreating to the spawn, the sandbags. Here's the thing, right? This is my gripe with it. It's not fun to watch, so that's why I'm not fully surprised that people were booing and casters weren't happy and stuff. Playing passive and whatnot. I'm not too surprised, but the fact of the matter is, Boxes is a tiny map. There's no map control as such, other than the vending machine and getting there first to gain. There's no ranged weapons to actually get angles with and go wide with, and there's no power weapons. And as such, the issue is, especially with Boxes and 2v2 and Nasher only fights in general, people will play passive. There is an advantage in taking a cover and waiting for someone to come out of cover right into your hard aim. And that's what Ash and Incisive took advantage of. We've seen it time and time again since Gears of War 1. If you say Nasher only and there's no power weapons, there's not even a lance or a smoke or pistol, players will camp. Unfortunately, Gears of War is more about cover than it is about the Nasher. As such, smarter players, right through from rookie level to professional level, understand that getting the first shot is critical and having cover is important. And so Ash and Incisive, I'm not surprised. In fact, fair play for them to actually playing smart, because money is on the line at the end of the day. Yes, they're pro players, but they are playing against, very good players themselves, pros in some cases, or ex-pros, of course, with J Ribs. And so they played it as smart as possible, as optimally as you can, given the map, given the settings, given the rule set, and they made it work for them. And that's why they're champs, essentially. So well played. Unfortunately, the issue is not with the players. Don't boo the players. Boo the game mode and the rule set. Perhaps if the sandbags are removed in future, or smokes spawn in the middle or something, I've heard people discussing, maybe that will prevent passive play. But even when you get to the vending machine, even when you get to the middle of the map, passive play will occur there as well. So don't be too surprised if that occurs in the future. Yeah, so it's basically the top and bottom of it is that don't hit the player, hit the game sort of thing, isn't it? It's one of those things where some adjustments come, if some adjustments come in, then, it can make things a lot easier and a little bit more entertaining for people to watch, of course. Frew, speaking of entertaining to watch, how did you generally enjoy the event? Of course, you were our man on the ground, so to speak. You got yourself over to sunny San Diego. I know California is lovely. It's not quite the same as England, as you can imagine, but
Do you have yourself a good time anyway?
Yeah, way less palm trees than England, but honestly, it was fantastic. No, really, San Diego, can't fault the city. Beautiful place, beautiful people. Felt right at home when I was there. The event itself was huge. We had tons of people there to spectate, tons of people to play. And yeah, it was just fantastic. Obviously, being my first Gears major, I was always going to be a bit kind of, I guess, awestruck by the whole setup. But yeah, it did surprise me just how well it was ran, how well it was set up. In terms of the arena itself, the main stage was in the middle. To the right hand side, you had like the 3 feature stations, the bar, the food shop, the merch stalls, and then on the other side, the far side of the room, you had, I think it was 16 side stations set up, which was something good actually, because throughout the whole event they were left there. So any teams that wanted to practice, scrim, play, they had the chance to go back. So on Sunday you could go up and you could just go choose a station and play on it if you wanted to. So it was a nice setup for pretty much everyone. Astro were there giving away headsets every 5 minutes, and yeah, Microsoft were giving away Lancers, and there was loads of like swag and merch to be given away, raffles to win, stuff like that. So yeah, it was good. It was just a generally a very fun event.
Yeah, imagine trying to get a Lancer through security.
That's what we were saying. I was sat there in the crowd with Laura, my partner, and we both had a raffle ticket, and the only thing that was left was this bleeding Lancer. We were praying that it didn't come our way. Luckily, someone from America got it. But yeah, even getting it through local security would have been a pain in the ass.
Imagine getting that. That's American security as well. Getting a pretend gun with a chainsaw attached to it. I can't imagine that would have been the easiest thing that you're trying to get through American security. Toby Campbell will pay testament to that. Yeah. Okay, let's further discuss the Pro Points announcement. If any of you guys at home did miss it, there has been a 95% reduction in Pro Points, meaning that other teams now have a chance to try and put up their Pro Points to get themselves to these events and put themselves straight into pools. What sort of impact do you think this has on Europe now, Toby?
This is huge. I think Elliot said it perfectly. It's essentially like a new season now. 95% is huge. Okay, no team will really be considering how many Pro Points they had from before. 5%, it really doesn't mean much in the grand scheme of things with all the 2Ks that go on every single week.
Yeah.
I think that really nailed it on the head. I think the Lucent change, it could be due to this announcement of 95% Pro Point decay. It genuinely could, because that's a consideration when a top team is trying to get to a North American event. They might consider what individuals have more Pro Points. Now that that's not a factor, perhaps that is exactly why most of the Lucent, or the Spanish players at least of Lucent, have gone back to their old team of Spaniards, who rightfully so, we said, we critiqued why on earth they split up in the first place. So, perhaps they fancy the chances in their previously strong team in that example. And it also opens the door for a lot of players now. Of course, Fable, they didn't attend as a team, at least, the event, San Diego Pro Circuit event. And perhaps with this change in Pro Points now, perhaps they'll be looking to reformulate teams to preferred teammates, potential teammates in the community. Perhaps we'll see different variations of previous teams now. Who knows what Jack Reaction has planned as to his future teammates now that he's looking for a full team, or looking to start one, perhaps. We'll have to wait and see on that one. And of course, Space Station aren't just way ahead of anyone now, so they'll have to be ensuring that they perform in the 2Ks no matter what, as they usually do, of course. But it's just something to consider as well. Yeah. Going into it. So yeah, it's essentially like a new season. There's no official Pro Circuit open event now till February, I believe. The Mexico City Open event is. So there is some time for teams to start building up their Pro Points in hopes of qualifying for that event, for pool play in that event. So yeah, lots to play for EE right now. I'm sure everyone will be double guessing, am I in the right team? Would I rather play with these players? Some players will come out with the woodwork and actually think, oh, maybe I can compete now and look for that top spot, or relative top spot for them, given that the Pro Points isn't a barrier to entry now, if you will, to certain rosters. So this is all very good news for EU. I just hope that everyone really does make the most out of it and gets to former glory, shall we say, with participation levels.
Yeah, and I think Frew, something that I was thinking about is that now surely if Europe were to host an event, if we were to host an event, even obviously we'll throw a hat in the ring, of course, but at the same time, do you not think this is the optimum time for that to happen? Because then teams have got something to fight for. There's more chance of players turning up to these events now. Because I think that was one of the complaints, wasn't it? It was like, well, what's the point in turning up to these events? We've got such low pro points. We're never going to get a chance to go over to these majors. Now there's a really, really big chance for teams to do that. I think taking away from the fact that it's all online, which is probably the only negative, obviously it's all based off 2Ks, wouldn't it be great to just have an event to try and decide from Europe to give a good chunk of pro points to some teams?
I think it'd be fantastic. Honestly, I'm looking at the schedule now. We've got till February till the next
Exactly,
open event. An event maybe early New Year, a few months before the event, maybe even late November. But late November is getting a bit tricky with Christmas coming up. It would be amazing for the scene. I mean, a 95% reduction. What's Hydrone on? 120k pro points or something like that would take him down to 6k. A 2k win is not that far off.
No.
Getting that amount. But there's 2,000 points obviously on the line. It tends to be in a 2k. And yeah, you've got a lot of chance for these teams to start kind of switching and changing their seed. An event right now, especially one like the EGL events we've seen prior with, what was it, 68,000 pro points I think we had on the line. Yeah, maybe now would be a time for an event because it could mix things up, and we could see some new up and coming teams now with the potential to get out to America to some of these majors off the back of that.
Yeah. Toby, what do you think? It's something more on the line for these players, wouldn't it be? I think that's a thing, is what has been the problem with competition in Europe.
It's been probably the biggest complaint, actually, the pro points and how far ahead a lot of these top teams and top players as such is. Pro points, they go to the individual, and that's why these certain rosters form, just to ensure qualification for, said event. I think this really opens the door for so many players. And yeah, a LAN event now, that would be huge as to actually really boosting numbers, really making everyone's ears prick up at the potential for getting a huge early lead over competitors in the pro point standing. So I think that would be perfectly timed, perhaps at the end of the year or maybe end of November. Alex touched on Christmas, of course, perhaps being an issue for booking off work or whatever it might be. But yeah, I think perfect time for an event for EU, and the numbers for that would be significant due to this pro point decay.
Yeah, I think so. Well, we're going to close it out in a second, but any parting things from you guys? Like, where do you sort of see Europe lying now in the grand scheme of things? Are we quite happy with Space Station's performance? Do we think they can extend it? Do we think they can get better? The same with all these other teams. Where do we sort of see Europe lying now on a global scale?
I think we're getting there. I honestly do. I think the teams that we send out there are consistently improving their placements, consistently challenging these top teams, especially the pool play teams, Lucent and Space Station being the two that we saw this previous event doing very, very well in their pools. Space Station, I think, can be better. I watched them throughout the event on their maps that they were, playing as they can. They were almost flawless. They had the best setup I've seen on DAM throughout the entire event, throughout any pro team. But honestly, their bad maps, they look crap. They looked amateur, and that's where they need to improve, is that consistency. And with time, that will come. With this off season, obviously they're probably going to go to the charity invitational. Let's not discount that. But by the time the next open comes around, I think they'll be ready. I think they'll be a fantastic force to be reckoned with, and I think it'll be their best chance yet to win a major. What I do want to see from them, and I spoke to them about this, is them to learn bloody Harbour. You've got 4.5, 5 months to learn Harbour. Put it in your cycle now. Get it nailed down. Turn up to the next pro circuit and take Harbour out in the semi-final or final, and you will shock everyone. People will turn up and go, "Oh shit, we have practice." Do you know? Because that was the one thing they were missing. They were crap on foundation this event. They'll admit that, and they didn't have any wiggle room to put foundation in as that ban and play Harbour instead. They just didn't have that practice done. So I'd like to see them do that. But honestly, yeah, I think Space Station will be phenomenal come February.
Cool. Toby, same sentiments from you?
Yeah, it's actually a very, very good point. Space Station, if they can learn Harbor, and then they actually have some wiggle room in the big picks and bans process, because of course that really does matter at the top level now, and they have cemented themselves as being that level. They don't need to practice their slaying power. Individually, they're insane. Some of the best players Gears Esports has ever seen. They really do need to think about polish now and strategy and tactics to really use against the teams of Optic Game and Ghost Gamer Echo and the likes to ensure consistency. Because yes, they have always been inconsistent. Space Station, even before getting to these kind of placements in Pro Circuit events, these players, Phelpsy, Craze, etc., they have been inconsistent in how they've performed as a team. And as such, they really do need to just work on their weaknesses, if anything, at this point, given the sheer amount of time before the next Pro Circuit Open event, and really add that polish that they need now to not only consistently, obviously they consistently place in top 4 now, but consistently place top 2 and challenge perhaps for an actual Pro Circuit event one.
And I've got one more thing before we close off, Tunn. I want to stress the importance of what Elliot said earlier. We've got so much opportunity now as a region, as Europe, to show up to these next few events. We've got the Charity Invitational coming up. That's in November. $200,000 on the line, obviously 50-50 split between the teams and the charities. But there's an LCQ for that, a last chance qualifier. That can go to anyone. Literally anyone in Europe can win that. And you could, be flown out to wherever it is and compete for 200K there. And then, of course, the 2Ks, they're going to be important, going all the way through till February. Try and get some good teams out to the next Pro Circuit Open. That's in Mexico City. One of the biggest events on the calendar is Mexico City. It's always packed. There's so many fans, and if you want to make a name for yourself as a European player, that's the place to do it. It's the best and the biggest event on the calendar. So yeah, make sure you're competing. Make sure you got your team sorted. Don't be a snake. Don't be a snake. And yeah, I hope to see some fantastic European gears out in the next couple of majors.
Awesome. Well, I feel like we're leaving it in a really good place. Gears of War in Europe seems in a pretty nice place now as well. Guys, thank you very, very much for joining. Guys who've been watching, thank you very, very much for watching. Please leave a like on the video and subscribe, because we've got plenty more Gears of War content coming to you very, very shortly. And we'll see you in the next video.